We're going to go ahead and get started so that we can keep ourselves on time. My name is Taryn, and together with my colleagues, Todd, Venie, and Avery, we are going to be talking to you about the new legal research paradigm, best practices for search engine optimization of legal scholarship. So basically what we see as the new legal research paradigm is Google Scholar and the way that it's changed research. So we actually did a lot of research into how people are searching, how people are researching. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about that. We're going to talk to you about what we found through our research are the best search engine optimization practices that we think are there. How to convince your faculty and yourself that you should be implementing these practices, and then we'll conclude. So, first, what is the new legal research paradigm? What we're talking about is basically how people search on Google. Academics and researchers are defaulting to Google Scholar when doing academic research, is what we found through our research. So, academics are preferring Google Scholar, your students are preferring Google Scholar, law students, undergraduate students, any of the students are defaulting there and starting there when they do their research. So this is the new paradigm that we're talking about. People want a Google-like algorithm when they're doing their research. They don't want to have to deal with Boolean searches and all of that fancy, icky stuff that they don't like. Now specifically, we're going to talk about something that's called academic search engine optimization. And that's been defined by a couple of the scholars that we researched into heavily. And they say this is the creation, publication, and modification of scholarly literature in a way that makes it easier for academic search engines to both crawl and to index your work. So, we know that academics are relying heavily on Google Scholar. What does this mean? One of the things that we discovered in our research is that researchers, and especially student researchers, rarely go past the page break. So what that means is you need to be in the top 6 results in order for a student to click on something that you published in Google Scholar. Additionally, researchers rarely, almost never go past the first page of results. People don't like to search further than this. All people want to be able to do is enter some keywords and have the article that they want pop up. This is one of the reasons why people are defaulting to Google Scholar, is because they can just type in some keywords and go. So if the average page break is only 10 articles, that means that you don't have the opportunity for people to discover your literature or your faculty's literature or anything that you might be writing about. Why is this important? This is important not just because of Google Scholar, but also because of any database that people search in. Over time, people develop habits. They have the habit of not going past the page break, the habit of not scrolling down. And so as we move forward, in any database that these researchers are searching in, they're not going to go past the page break or the first page. So we need to be aware of that and try to make sure that our scholarship is optimized in a way that best takes advantage of how these search engines search so that our scholarship can be found. So, how do we adjust to this new legal research paradigm? One thing is just to recognize how legal researchers research, which is one of the things that we did a lot of research in and we just talked about. Understanding the Google Scholar algorithm. And that's one of the things that Todd is about to talk about when he's going to talk about how Google finds things and how Google Scholar takes the keywords that you type in and finds whatever article it thinks is most relevant to you and to your search. We also are going to say that you need to adopt these best search engine optimization practices that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation. And we think all of this will help you to get on the first page of results or get your faculty on the first page of results, so that when people are searching for an article that's about something that you've written about, they'll find it. So, I'm going to turn it over to Todd, who's going to tell us a little bit about how Google Scholar works.
Thank you, Taryn. So, understanding that everyone here is likely familiar with Google and likely familiar with Google Scholar, we still want to talk a little bit about both how they work and how they relate to each other and how they're different from each other. As Taryn said, these best practices that we've come up with are based on some research by computer science scholars about how Google Scholar and Google not only find results, but how they rank them. So if you were to do a regular, old-fashioned Google.com search for a basic legal concept, say contracts of adhesion, you're going to get 427,000 results, right? And almost none of this, at least in the top results, are going to be things that we would consider scholarly or academic in nature. Coming as no surprise to anyone, Wikipedia is at or near the top of any search like this, right? In addition to that, you're going to find online legal dictionaries from NOLO, from the Legal Information Institute, thefreedictionary.com. Again, perhaps useful sources for a lot of casual users, but nothing that we would describe as scholarly. And then you're going to find attorney referral services that are presumably just eager to match us up with attorneys specializing in contracts of adhesion. So that's how Google works. Because it's focused on the entire open web, and because of the way its algorithm works, it isn't going to focus on scholarly material. It is going to find scholarly material. The first, as you scroll through those 427,000 results on regular Google, the first scholarly thing that comes up is this article from Yale, from their digital commons set. It always seems to be the first law review article that comes up. It's the top-ranked scholarly source. Now, where exactly it ranks within those 427,000 depends a little bit on who's doing the searching, because it remembers user behavior, right? Google keeps track of the searches you do, the things you click on, what you don't click on. So sometimes it's the 7th result out of 427,000. Sometimes it's at the top of the 2nd page of results. And sometimes it's past the break on the 2nd page. And again, this depends on the computer that you're using. If you're logged in to your Gmail account, then it's presumably keeping track of the searches that you do when you're logged in on Gmail at home and doing Google searches. So this is how Google Scholar works. Virtually none of it, almost none of it, is going to be scholarly, and the stuff that is scholarly is not going to find its way to the top of results, and it's certainly not going to beat out Wikipedia and attorney referral sites. So what's Google Scholar? Google Scholar is searching a very small subset of what's available on the web, and a very small subset of the things, the kinds of things that regular Google is searching. You'll notice, it's kind of grayed text, but there are 35,800 results in Google Scholar for exactly the same search, contracts of adhesion. So a fraction of the number. That's largely because we're searching only a very small, hand-picked number of sites. Hand-picked by Google, in many cases in partnership with the people who own that site. This is what some people have called an invitation-based search engine. So Google is identifying things that they regard as scholarly in nature. And I'm going to go through the list of things that we know they look at. But as a result, they're only going to search those things that they've identified. They're going to use a different algorithm than the one that regular Google uses. And the results are all going to be things that we would regard as scholarly. And they're all going to be from websites and databases that we're very familiar with, things like Hein, SSRN, etc. So when we do this search, contracts of adhesion, this is number 1 and number 4. They're both through Hein. They're both law review articles, Columbia Law Review and Tulane Law Review. And something else that's extremely important that I'm going to talk about in a minute is they all have the words, the exact phrase, contracts of adhesion, not just in the article, but in the title. And that's significant. So again, this is going to be number 1 and number 4. These aren't things that you're going to find. I mean, you may find them in your 427,000 Google results, but they're not going to be at the top of the results. Because again, they can't compete with Wikipedia. So these are the things that have been announced as part of the invitation-based search universe of Google Scholar. There is one very notable exception for us, and that's Westlaw. They don't have a deal with Westlaw. Their search bots cannot crawl through Westlaw's servers and index the articles that they have. They do have a deal with Lexis. If you've done a lot of Google Scholar searching, you will see something called Litigation Essentials LexisNexis. That's the tool that Lexis has given Google access to. And a lot of the journals that Lexis carries are available through that Litigation Essentials. Other things, Hein Online, obviously, SSRN, institutional repositories, whether they're through Digital Commons or another platform. These are the things that they're restricting themselves to in their searching. If it's something that only shows up on Westlaw and is not published on any of these other sites, you're not going to find it through Google Scholar. So here's another Google Scholar search. This one is just for the word originalism. Again, we get about 11,800 results. All of them are going to be scholarly. All of them are going to be through those scholarly databases, academic databases that we identified. And all of them at the top are going to have originalism in the title. And again, that's one of the major factors that the algorithm is going to use to decide what goes on the top and what gets put on subsequent pages. So what determines the rankings in Google Scholar? The last slide in here, or I guess it's the second to last slide, has a little bibliography that we've created if you're interested in that. There are a number of articles from computer science researchers who attempt to reverse engineer the algorithm and do testing to determine which factors have the greatest impact on the rankings. The number 1 result in this originalism search is a lecture published in the Cincinnati Law Review from Justice Scalia. It's been cited 1,472 times, and it has originalism in the title, the first word in the title. Those two factors, 1,472, which is huge for a law review article. It's one of the, 10 or 15 most cited law review articles of all time. And the fact that originalism is in the title are the two most obvious, verifiable factors that result in this Scalia lecture being bumped up to number 1 when you do a search just for that one word. All of the results on the first page had originalism in the title, and all of them were highly cited, though none of them is cited as highly cited as this one. So based on this research of these people doing the reverse engineering, what we think it's looking for are, as I said, the citation count. That's significant. The keywords in the title, whether it's originalism or adhesions of contracts of adhesion, it wants to find the keywords in the title, and it doesn't care, and we'll talk about this in a second, about keywords in the full text. It also likes keywords in journal titles. So, for example, my originalism search, if I change that to constitutional originalism, Scalia is not the first result anymore. The first result is an article from the journal called Constitutional Commentary. And it has originalism in the title, but because that publication from the University of Minnesota's law school is called Constitutional Commentary, when I add the word constitutional to the search, that's a significant factor. So whether it's a specialty tax law, IP, international journal, those terms are going to have a significant impact on where the articles get ranked. Lastly is currency. It wants new things. There's a contradiction here because it's taking into account currency, but it's also taking into account how many times you've been cited. The newer it is, the less chance it has to be cited. The exact workings of that are unclear to me at this point from the literature that we've looked at. But we do know that those two things are significant. It's not looking for synonyms. So when you search for contracts of adhesion, it's not going to look for boilerplate language in contracts. It's also not counting how many times, or maybe counting, but it doesn't really care that much about how many times your keywords appear in the text. So it doesn't matter how many times you repeat contracts of adhesion or originalism over and over again in your article. That isn't going to bump you up in the rankings. It cares about your title. It doesn't care, or at least not significantly, about the keywords in the text. There are some open questions to us. One is social media. If you're tweeting about your articles, if you're posting them on Facebook, if you've got them on your LinkedIn page, does that affect where your article is placed in the rankings on Google Scholar? We haven't found any literature about that in these reverse engineering articles where they talk about that. The other thing is author reputation. When we did the originalism search, you'll notice the top results are Scalia, Michael McConnell, Randy Barnett, Daniel Farber. These are all major names of people who write about originalism with regard to the Constitution. One of the questions we have is, does their reputation and the fact that they all have lots of articles out there that are being cited to, does that impact how these articles get ranked when we do a search for originalism? We think that is an unknown at this point because, again, we haven't found anyone in the literature talking about author reputation and how it affects the rankings. So based on this and how Google Scholar works, I'm going to turn it over to Avery, who's going to talk about best practices for making your articles findable and getting them highly ranked.
Okay, so today we're going to tell you about the best practices for search engine optimization. And we've dubbed this the 4 C's of web publishing. And they are creating attractive titles, abstracts, and metadata, crossing over to other disciplines, covering multiple web locations, and converting to searchable, machine-readable PDFs. I'm going to go over the first 2 with you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Taryn to round it out with the last 2. So in order to prepare your articles for search engine optimization, the first thing we want to take a look at is your article title. So what we mean by that is we want you to note the importance of what your title conveys and be able to summarize its contents in just a manageable title, because the first thing the reader is going to see on that screen in the list of search results is the title, and it's also a key component of the metadata, which I'm going to talk about later. So you want to choose a title that's not only going to appeal to your readers, but it's going to let them know right away what your article is about. And this in turn will make your article more identifiable through search techniques such as keyword searching. The challenge is to create a title that's not only smart and witty, but it doesn't lose focus of the content. And you can always add a subtitle if you want to have room for more catchy ideas, but you want to make sure that the title accurately pinpoints your topic first. You also have to watch the length of the title. So you want it to be a good balance of being a title that's catchy and informative, but you don't want to run the risk of it being too short or too long or just too much information that it will overwhelm your readers. Next, you're going to want to incorporate keywords directly into the article title. And when you do that, you want to think about keyword positioning. So what I mean by that, what I mean by keyword positioning is you want to take on important keywords and you want to load them at the beginning of your title. The reason is when someone does an online search and the list of search results pop up, they're only going to show you a preview of the title and a little snippet of the abstract, and the rest is cut off, right? So you want the viewer to be able to decipher what your article is about as soon as they see it on the screen. And that way, they don't have to click on every single search result in order to determine what the article is about. This will get them to be more likely to click on your search results and not skip over it inadvertently, just in case your article does contain information that they're looking for, but the title might not necessarily reflect that. So, for example, if I was writing an article, and I was writing it on, let's say, online data privacy, what I want to do is I would want to highlight all the specific keywords such as data privacy, online data protection in my actual title. And let's take, for example, Robert Kirk Walker of UC Hastings wrote a great article, and the title is The Right to be Forgotten. Plain, simple, straight to the point title. And that title is great if someone is actually specifically researching the right to be forgotten. But what if they don't know what the right to be forgotten is? Because not everyone does, right? If you're not in IP law or you're not in the law field at all, and you're just doing a broad search about online data privacy, and this pops up, you're going to say, what is the right to be forgotten? You're probably going to glance at it and then move on. So the idea is to be able to clue your potential searcher into what your article is about right away. So what I would suggest if I were the author of this article is I would add in some keywords to let the searcher know kind of what it's about. So I would go with something like, for example, online data deletion and the right to be forgotten. Because that way you're combining the two, and then people will be clued into the fact that they're connected. Or you can do another variation like maintaining online privacy, the right to be forgotten. So that way it'll be straight and to the point from just reading the title and nothing else. All right, so that was all about titles. And now we're going to take the same techniques and we're going to move on. And we're going to apply it to your abstracts and your metadata. So I'm going to talk about the abstracts first. With abstracts, just like I mentioned with the title, you want to make sure that it's clear and concise and has all the important keywords that you need, and that all the important parts are visible within the preview area of the search results. So that means depending on what the script is of the search engine, when you see the list of search results, they might display the first couple of sentences of the abstract or the last couple of sentences. So those are the important parts that carry the weight of the decision of the searcher as to whether or not they want to take their time to open the article and read it or even download it. So you want to put the important keywords in the beginning and at the end as well. And while you're doing that, so the reason the abstract is important is because it's the second thing that the reader is going to look at. So first you're going to try to catch their attention with that catchy title, and then the next point of focus they're going to go to is they're going to try to skim the abstract for as many clues as possible as to what the article is about, right? So when you're putting in all those important keywords, you want to be careful not to game the system. And what do I mean by gaming the system? So let's say I write an article on First Amendment rights. And so my main keyword would be First Amendment. But I'm not going to just take that keyword and plaster it over and over and over repeatedly in the abstract 35 to 40 times because I think that's what the reader's looking for without any basis or context to it. So that means you would just have an abstract that just says First Amendment, copy and paste it all over again throughout the whole thing. And that sounds like a great idea, but actually the system, the search algorithm is designed to know when you're trying to take advantage. So if that were the case, they would actually pick up on it and it would have a negative effect in that the search algorithm will completely remove your article from the search results altogether. So you want to be careful not to do that. Same thing goes for metadata. So what is metadata? Metadata is the behind-the-scenes descriptive information that's being embedded into the articles, and it's being electronically transmitted to the computers so that they can form their search algorithm based on it. So it's something that the reader cannot visibly see on their end, right? But it's the part that's going to the computers so that the computers can extract and calculate the information that they need in order to form the search results. So with metadata, just think about it as like the blueprint of the data that's the behind the scenes part. That way, if you're creating metadata, you want to make sure that your article title, your author, and your keywords are all inputted correctly and that they match the contents of the article. This is where you would also put in the cross disciplines and institutional affiliation so that your institution would get more exposure as a whole, and then it'll increase your online presence and reputation. So what am I really talking about when I say metadata? Well, we're going to take a look at an example, and I'm going to show you one of our professor's articles that she wrote, and then we're going to compare two PDF versions of the same article. One PDF version has been uploaded to our UF Law repository, and the other one has been uploaded to SSRN. So two different versions of the same article that's out there on the internet. And then we're going to take a look at the metadata of both PDFs, and then we're going to see how they measure up to our search engine optimization standards. Taryn, do you mind? Yep. So we're going to pull up the article from the UF Law repository first, and we're going to check the metadata for that. So the article is, okay, so the article is Public Forum 2.1, Public Higher Education Institutions and Social Media, written by our previous dean, Dean Robert Jerry, and Professor Larissa Litsky. And in order to check the metadata on any PDF, what you do is you just go to File, and then you go to Properties, and then all the metadata fields are going to show up. And you can do this on Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Reader. If you need to change it, you'll be on Adobe Acrobat. All of these instructions should be on the handout that has been provided for you. I think it's online. And then, so once you open this up, so this would be an example of strong metadata. This is how you can check it. If you look at the title, it matches the article perfectly. So there's no misspellings, there's no errors, all the capitalization is correct. Public Forum 2.1, Public Higher Education Institutions and Social Media. And this is a great title, by the way. But as I said before, if it were up to me, I would push all the important keywords to the front more, so I would concentrate on public higher education being at the forefront. But that's just me. In general, this is a great title. And then next, you're going to look at the author field. So the author field here is reflected correctly. It says it's by Robert H. Jerry II and Larissa Barnett Litsky. And the author name is also something you want to keep consistent throughout your career. And this is what these two people have done. So Professor Litsky has gone by Larissa Barnett Litsky throughout her whole career. So anything she writes and attributes her work to is going to match up with her name. Same thing with Dean Jerry. And that way the search algorithm is going to have an easier time identifying who the author is when there's many different publications, because a lot of people have the same name, correct? So whether you're getting married, whether you're getting divorced, if you're changing your name because you're running away from creditors, if you have a nickname, middle initial, whatever it is, just pick one variation of your name and stick to it throughout your career. And that'll make the algorithm simpler. Go back to the PDF. Okay, and the last point is keywords. Here they have some pretty relevant, strong keywords that have to do with the topic of the article. So that's great. I would put in more keywords. It never hurts to add more, but this is pretty sufficient enough. So I would categorize this metadata as pretty strong metadata. So let's take a look at the other side of it. Let's take a look at what weak metadata looks like. So here we have the same article, but it's a different PDF version. And with this version, this one is uploaded to SSRN. So let's take a look at the metadata here. So what do you think is wrong? So right off the bat, the title is filled out as article. So this is actually worse than just leaving the field blank. Okay, so you know what's going to happen is it's article in capital letters. So now not only is the search algorithm going to pick that up as the article name and put in the search results, but it's going to pick it up for anyone who's doing a keyword search for the word article in it, right? So that's not necessarily a good thing if your PDF is showing up for just random searches that have nothing to do with what you wrote. It's probably not going to turn into a citation count for you. It's just going to put your download numbers up, if that. And then next is the author, Alexandra Amador. It's a mystery woman. We don't actually know who she is. We suspect that she was an RA for Dean Jerry at the time that they uploaded this to SSRN. She might have been the person that uploaded it. Sometimes when you have Adobe Acrobat and you install it, they have pre-filled out all these metadata fields for you. So if you don't change it, it's still there. So whoever she is, good for her, because she's being credited for this awesome article that she did not write. So if you do a search for her name, it might even pop up, right? And on the reverse side, Dean Jerry and Professor Litsky are not getting credited for the hard work that they put into it. sure, the author names are in the PDF, in the text, but now you're assuming that the PDF is OCR machine readable, which Taryn will tell you about later, and you're assuming that all the other factors that I just mentioned are good to go. And if it's not, then this weak metadata is going to cause issues for you. And then let's take a look at keywords. Well, forget about it, because there are none. So we don't have to even worry about it. So it doesn't matter what the keywords they're putting in, it's just not going to show up as a search result when the search algorithm is being calculated. So remember, okay, now we just need to go back. So just to recap, I don't have the slides. But just to recap, you saw the stronger metadata for the first version of the PDF that was uploaded to the UF Law repository. So it had the right author, the right title, and it had the right, just several keywords inputted into it. So that's what strong metadata would be. So that person, whoever changed the metadata, did their due diligence and they made sure that the metadata lined up with the contents of the article. And that person would be someone really wise, me, because I'm the one who uploaded it. So, pat on the back for myself, doing a great job. Thank you. And the second one, weak metadata, right? So it had the wrong title, it had the wrong author, and had no keywords whatsoever. So how is this going to play into search results? All right, well, let's just do a test and see what happens. I don't know how to use this computer, so she's fixing it for me. So let's test it out. And let's not even think about Google Scholar right now. Let's just talk about Google. So I'm going to go to Google, and let's say I know this article is in existence already. So I know there's a professor named Litsky that wrote an article called Public Forum 2.1. So we're going to go to Google and type in what we think a searcher would type in, which is Public Forum 2.1 Litsky, right? That's usually how they do it. And if you see, the first two top search results are from the UF Law repository, because I did a good job putting in the metadata. I know. And if you take a look at the rest of it, I can guarantee you that in the first 10 pages of these results, the PDF that is on SSRN with the weak metadata is nowhere to be found. I don't know if it's anywhere after the first 10 pages, but we don't care, right? Because Taryn just told you, people usually don't even go past the first page of results. So that would be a bad thing. So that's why the weak metadata would come into play. So does that mean the SSRN article will never be found? No, of course not, because there's other factors that go into it, such as the text of the PDF, the title that I talked to you about, the keywords, the abstracts, and all of that. But it will make a difference when it comes to just plain searches, just like a title search that we just did. All right. So that was all about metadata. And now I'm going to move on to the best practices number 2, which is cross-discipline marketing. Okay, so what does that mean? It's about categorizing your work into multiple disciplines, both as a sub-discipline for law and also as disciplines outside of the law field, which is everything else that's academic. And you can do this if you have the opportunity to do so. So it doesn't work for everyone. Yes, most faculty scholarship that comes from a law school is probably going to be law related, and that's natural. But sometimes, depending on the contents of the article, it could be written on something that's going to overlap, right? So sub-disciplines in the law field would be things such as constitutional law, contract law, tax law, anything having to do with the law umbrella. And then other disciplines would be everything else. So let's say you write an article about civil rights matters. That can be categorized under civil rights laws, but it can also be under social sciences, maybe psychology, and the like. So what you want to do is you want to be able to maximize your exposure for your article online by posting it under multiple disciplines. But you want to choose disciplines that are related and disciplines that have to do with your topic. So again, you don't want to try to game the system by taking your article and just posting it across the board under every single discipline you can find under the sun, because again, that's going to have a negative effect. What it's going to do is it's going to make you and your article lose credibility, especially if you're recognized as an expert in a specific area of law. You want to keep that reputation going. So if they see your name under too many disciplines, they're not going to recognize you as that expert in that specific field. So be careful with that. And what this is essentially going to do is it's just going to allow your work to be spread out across many different researchers and scholars in different academic backgrounds, and it's going to cast a wider net for a wider range of audience. And if that's the case, then there are more people in the academic field reading your material, then it's probably going to translate into more citation counts in the long run. All right, and that's it for me, so I'm going to turn it over to Taryn, who's going to round us out with the last two.
Thank you. You get to listen to me again, which is exciting. All right, so the third best practices that we're going to talk about is covering multiple web locations. And what we mean by this is simply making sure that you're posting your article or your faculty's article on as many different platforms as you can think of. What this will do is hope this increases the number of unique places that your article can be found, which might have, where an article is found or mentioned, which again will help people find your article. Additionally, what it can do is it will attract disparate audiences. One of the things, if a person only looks on Twitter for their articles, for example, you want to make sure that you're posting somewhere that a person will find it. Related to that, you want to attract people from different fields, from different locations, kind of like what Avery was just talking about. You want to make sure if a person only searches for their scholarship on Hein Online, you want to make sure that your article is there. If a person only searches for scholarship on SSRN, again, you want to make sure that your article is posted to SSRN so that you're capturing all of these people who are searching in different places. So, there are a number of different places that you can post an article as you finish them and as you go forward. Of course, SSRN, making sure that you post it there. LinkedIn is also a really great place, or any other curriculum vitae type website are good places to make sure that you post your article. If your school or your university or your library, or even all three, have an institutional repository, making sure that it gets posted up there is also a really good practice. If you have your own personal web page or blog that you keep for yourself, that's another great place to post your article. Similarly, if your library has a blog, if there's a faculty web page that's maintained on your behalf, any of those things that are through your school or your library, making sure that those are posted there as well are really good. And finally, one of the things, we have the press, I think, as our institutional repository. And one of the things that it allows is for our faculty and for us to do a selected works page. And again, it's just another place that your article is posted, another location where people can find what you've written. All right. The last best practice, making sure that your PDFs have been OCR'd. Making sure that they are machine readable. So a lot of times, and this is happening less and less nowadays as Acrobat gets better and better, a lot of times when you post a PDF, what you're posting is essentially a picture of that page. And what you want to make sure is that it's text renderable, that the machine can actually read the text on the page, and that it doesn't just see a picture of the article, so that it can actually search every word that's on there. And this is good not just for the search engines who want to be able to read, but also for your readers themselves. So that if they want to do a control-find search in your article, this will allow them to do so with ease. They won't have to convert it themselves or anything like that. So just make sure that your scholarship gets out there. So I'm going to show you, now unfortunately, you do need Adobe Acrobat in order to convert your PDFs. So I know sometimes an Acrobat can be expensive, but actually you can download a free trial for 30 days, and then you can just OCR all your PDFs really quickly, and then you'll be done. So that's one thing that you can get around that if you don't have that. So see, what these articles have already been OCR'd because Avery is the amazing one and who posted them online. One quick and easy way to tell if your article has been OCR'd is simply to see if you can highlight the text. If you can, it's OCR'd and you're good to go. If it isn't, what you do is you go to View, Tools, and And this will look different depending on the version of Adobe that you have. It might say OCR, it might say text recognition, it might say something similar to that language, but that's the language that you want to look for. And we'll just click on that. And what should appear is this little box over to the right. And you just want to recognize in this file, unless you have multiple files. I haven't tried this feature, so I don't know how well it works. I've only done in a single file. And then you'll do all pages, hit OK. And this is going to say, we can't do this because it contains renderable text. It's already OCR. If your document had not been OCR, what you would see is right here, there would be a little box that would say rendering text. And you would see it going, 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 and then it would tell you. And again, the easy way to check to see if your document has been rendered it's going to do every single page now. It's simply to see if you can highlight the text. And if you can highlight your text, you're good to go. And again, these details are in the handout that we are going to post on the website soon. All right. So the last thing that we want to talk about is getting buy-in to do these practices. Hopefully we've convinced you that these are really good things for you to be doing whenever you're posting anything that you're writing online. This is something that really boosts your visibility on the web. It boosts your the people who are going to find you, and it boosts your scholarship online as well. So this is something that everyone should be doing. Marketing and demonstrations, I think, are also some really good keys to do. One of the things that we did, and we managed to get some funding to get some lunch so all the faculty came, was we actually did a very similar version of this presentation to our faculty. And after we did that, we had a lot of them contacting us, asking us, could you go through that again to make sure? And so that's one of the ways that you can get buy-in, is convince your faculty, show yourselves, that this is something that will really boost their numbers, boost their downloads, something that they really care about. Another thing to mention and to tell your faculty as well is that this doesn't decrease your downloads on SSR and InvPress. And so if you're worried about playing the game and having them change your downloads, it doesn't do that. It actually will probably increase them because people will be more likely to find your article. We want people to read what we write, and we want people to be able to find it when we post it online. The same with your faculty, the same with anyone you know who writes scholarship and posts it. And so that's what we're looking for today. That is all that we have for today. These are our email addresses, and are there any questions?
So on the SSR downloads, which are very important to us faculty, so you're saying post the whole article. And I've been doing abstracts because I've been afraid of the SSR and download. So if I post an article, by example, on LinkedIn, are you saying it's because I'm getting a new audience who wouldn't normally go to SSR in any way? Is that why you're saying that? Okay.
Yeah, you're going to get more people, and they're going to start citing your article, which is going to increase your citation count, which is going to increase your ranking in Google Scholar too. And so we think it all contributes to increasing those rankings, and nothing really, they don't really push against each other.
So SSRN, okay, for the professional, for most world outside of academia, it's clunky. Like they're always like, what is that? Okay. And do I have to sign up for it? Do I have to pay? So if you put it on LinkedIn, that's easy to use. People get that. You just stuck it on a website and download it from Google. But how does Google know all the citations that are off? How does it pick up on that, the algorithm?
I believe the answer to that is, so for example, the Scalia article with 1,472, how's it coming up with the number 1,472? I believe the answer to that is articles, documents that exist within the Google Scholar universe that are citing to Scalia's article. So for that particular account, if someone writes an article and it is for one reason or another not findable through Google Scholar, not within that universe of invited sources that are searched on Google Scholar, then it wouldn't count in his 1,472 under that article. But if you're being cited by an article that ends up itself on SSRN, then it gets counted in the index of 1,472 articles that cite to that Scalio.
Following up on that, LinkedIn. Now, do you have the ability to link articles to your LinkedIn profile on the free version, or do you actually have to upgrade to link? Because I've been, when I publish something, I post it on SSRN as an update, but I've never found a way to actually link it permanently to my profile. Is there a way to do that on the free?
On LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn?
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be a premium feature. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. One thing you can do if you don't have, if it is the case that the article you can't actually post it, is to put a citation in. There are a couple of different publication or scholarship works on LinkedIn, and so simply putting that citation in, if they won't let you upload the actual article, can also be a good thing. And also just adding the abstract too, because that way people are still finding it, and it might take them an extra step to get to it. But if you have a link to your faculty webpage, for example, or to your SSRN already on your LinkedIn page, you can kind of direct them that way. So that, I think, would be the best workaround there.
I'm just curious, there's such a move towards open access, digital commons, for example. How does that play into the search engine optimization? Is that part of the Google Scholar world that it searches digital commons?
Yes. It searches digital commons as well as other freestanding digital repositories, institutional repositories. Some schools host them on their own website versus using the digital commons platform. And those are all included in Google Scholar. If they identify it as scholarly in nature, then they add it as one of the places that gets crawled and gets indexed, and that includes digital commons.
Well, I'm noticing that in our school, faculty seem to be resisting digital commons because of the impact on SSRN numbers. Were you able to see that is there an impact? Isn't there an impact? I mean, can you begin?
Some of the librarians at the University of Georgia have done a couple of articles about this. They've done research measuring whether there's an impact or not. And their conclusion was that there wasn't, but there's literature out there that they can be pointed to about that.
And that's one of the reasons that we did this presentation for our faculty, was because they had the same concern that your faculty had, was why should we be using our institutional repository if it's going to decrease our download numbers? But, and of all the research we did as well, we didn't find anything that showed that they would decrease it.
And I think a big part of the reason why is who uses those sources, SSRN versus digital commons. And I think, for example, with SSRN, the idea is that a huge portion of the downloads are coming from academics who have alerts set up for particular subjects or particular publications within SSRN collections. They get the email and they just click the article they're interested in and do that. That's how SSRN downloads are happening. Digital commons, it's much more common for people to find those articles through a Google search or a Google Scholar search. And it's different groups of people who aren't overlapping with each other. And that's, I think, a big part of the reason why they think those digital commons downloads aren't taking away from SSRN downloads, but really supplementing them. It's behind you, yes.
Do you know, does Google rank the actual sources, does it rank Lexis higher than digital commons, or do you know anything about that?
That has not shown up in the studies we've looked at.
Okay.
They don't seem to be preferring one over the other. The one, you mentioned Lexis, so I'll mention this. The one thing that I'm still unclear about is on Lexis, what you find, the results you get on Google Scholar that are Lexis results are part of this platform that calls itself Litigation Essentials. I can't find anything about what that is or what's included. And my basic question is this searching, is Google Scholar searching all of the law journals that you would be searching if you were searching on Lexis Advanced? I have tried to communicate with both Lexis and Google, and they keep referring me to each other to answer that question. So I don't know the answer to that. So I don't think they're preferring one or the other. I do think it's a question of what gets carried on the different, what shows up in the different ones, in the different databases. Because they may not be searching certain titles through that Litigation Essentials, but they are searching those titles through, say, Hein Online. Okay, yes?
I know that ePress makes a big point of saying that any of the articles you upload into Digital Commons, they do a really good job of optimizing it for search, but they also have additional tools after you've uploaded the documents that you can maybe tweak afterwards. In your experience or your research, does Digital Commons just by itself do a really good job of doing SEO, or have you had to go in and tweak any little aftermarket options?
Avery?
Yeah, we use bpress, so I can't speak for the other platforms. But with bpress, they do have an extra metadata that's underlying what you're doing, but every time that you upload something, you're the one that's in control of it. You know very well. You're the one that's in control of it, so anything that you upload through bpress is already being transmitted as a search engine optimization tool. So that's why it's better when you do it versus, and I think it's different if you do batch upload versus one by one also. But if you do batch upload, you can also add in all the fields all at once. And yes, so they have an extra layer of metadata that's above that, that's not manually inputted as well. And that's why usually when you do a search, you'll see that the bpress repositories will usually be number 1 and number 2, and then you'll see SSRN as number 3 nowadays if they have the same article posted. And yes, so that's what they claim. They claim that they do have an extra layer of search engine optimization inputted into it.
So to go to the LinkedIn question, so for the free LinkedIn profile, you can't actually upload the article, but what you can do is add a URL. So if it's on bpress or SSRN, you can link to it, but they also give you a description field. So basically you can take the keywords you would add an abstract, so you can optimize it for searchability on LinkedIn that way, even with a free account.
Oh, okay, well, you had your hand for a long time before me. But anyway, I just have a quick question. Was there anything, did you come across anything in the scholarship or in your own analysis, like if, I guess to try to figure out, you know, if author reputation, just kind of waiting like for like Scalia's next new article and then just kind of like day one trying to find it. Because then that would preclude, you know, people who have already cited it if it's a brand new article.
So the research that we looked at, the only author reverse engineering that they did was, for example, if an author's name was Black. And they were like, that can optimize your article because of that, right?
Yeah, author's name matching your keywords.
Right. Would be, but as far as the reputation of the author, that was something that they never considered, and they explicitly said, you know, we're not considering reputation of the author. One thing that we posit is that in the computer science field, because a lot of articles are written by multiple people, is that, and in the law field, a lot of articles are simply written by one person, is that the impact of the author may not be as significant in that field as it is in law sometimes. And that might be why that they haven't done that. That's actually something, if anybody knows how to do reverse engineering on Google Scholar, that we would love to learn, would be reverse engineering the author name and how important reputation is. So, and then you had a question here.
Yeah, so my understanding is that in Google Scholar you can also create like a scholar profile where you pull together all your citations. And that it can be kind of time consuming because you can set it up to sort of automatically try to identify things, but then you have to weed it out if there's similar author names, things like that. So do you know if there's any benefit to taking the time to create and curate a Google Scholar profile? Do you have any sense of if that helps your results or if that's a useful tool?
I think that's an unknown, and that's one of the things that we were thinking of when we talk about does author reputation or the number of citations that the author has to other works, maybe on the same subject, maybe not. We were thinking maybe it uses those Google Scholar profiles, and because it's got a collection of all that person's work, we couldn't find any evidence of that. So from our review of the literature, I think that's a gap. I think that's an unknown at this point.
One thing that creating a Google Scholar profile would do would be to kind of identify you as the author of these works, and if you have a specific niche that you work in, and so that can be a way for people to see your name identified in this specific body of work and this specific constitutional law sort of area.
As another sort of marketing tool.
Right, exactly.
In that vein, do you know if, do you have a feeling of whether creating like an academia.edu profile tends to be beneficial? Because my understanding is that's used more in other fields than it is in the law, or whether those kinds of websites are...
No, and we don't, and I don't. Part of the issue here is that you'll notice a couple of names showing up, Beal and Gipp. These are the two main scholars who are publishing on this field, or in this area of how Google Scholar works. And they had a flurry of publications in 2009 through 2011, and they seem to have moved on to other things. And I don't know how old academia.edu is, but if it's more recent than that, they wouldn't have even had it on their radar. The bulk of the research with regard to the reverse engineering and the algorithm comes from those two scholars, and they're the only ones that we could find there writing extensively about that. But like I said, it's a few years old.
We are. Yeah, so thank you very much.